Pearl Davis is a YouTuber who they're calling the female Andrew Tate, you guys. Lock her up. Lock her up, throw away the key. She does a lot of stuff that triggers a lot of women. She posted a 13-minute video or something the other day about why women shouldn't vote. Pretty funny, standing in front of a whiteboard and everything else. And she posted this June 27th, which is 5 days ago now, I guess, or 6 days ago, however many days, and the triggering is still happening for it. The triggering is still going, as I thought maybe this was gonna be, dated when I first saw it, but no, there's still live triggerings happening. People are still stepping on trigger buttons. Okay, she says, yes, you're less attractive at 35 than at 25 as a woman. This used to be common sense 50 years ago. Now, obviously, this isn't true for everybody. It's not going to be true for a whole lot of people, especially if you were bigger when you were younger, if you didn't care as much, maybe you were a drug addict, whatever the case may be. But I think in general, everybody agrees that men and women are probably in better shape when they're younger, something to that regard. But what I'm interested in here, as I mentioned, is the triggerings. Okay, and it always shows more about the person who gets triggered by somebody's opinion than it does the person who's saying it. So we've got this woman here who goes by Officer Baby Wolf. We can discern what we need from that immediately, as my friend Lewis would say in England. She says, I will have to agree with this. LOL. I'm in the same boat. I'm hotter now at 39 than I was at 25. And she shows a picture of herself before and after. Here it is. And what's your first reaction? Because my first reaction is this woman really just wanted to share a picture of herself without a shirt on. That's my first reaction. Not, oh, maybe she's got a point here. It's this. She was going to post a picture of herself for some reason, and she found a way to do it. And why are you at 39 years old posting these pictures of yourself on the internet? That's a good question. The before picture of her had her more conservatively dressed. She's got a cross and everything. Is the true reality here now that you're more desperate? I think yes. And we had more, perhaps more disturbing posts about this afterwards. I hope you slay this hard at 50. Ageism isn't sexy, this woman says, whose name is Femdom Therapy. Again, we're saying a lot more about ourselves here in the reaction than the person who gives the first question. And then we've got another person, 23 versus 40. It's just, these are just excuses to post pictures of ourselves. And if you want to do that, that's fine. That's not going to be my cup of tea, or probably a lot more people's cup of tea who are on Twitter for like news and stuff. But we're all victims of what we click on. But this reminded me a lot of Ann Coulter being on some father's show. And by father, I don't mean a guy who's actually somebody's father. I mean a religious faja, a Catholic priest who apparently had a talk show called Father Albert Hot Under the Collar, which is not to be confused with Fat Albert. I almost read it as Fat Her Albert, which is very interesting. But Ann Coulter was on this show years ago. This post on its own was posted in 2016. It's probably right around where I saw it. But Ann Coulter was on this show with this religious talk show host talking about how, statistically speaking, single mothers raise, the most criminals, they raise the most drug addicts, on and on and on. The people who are drug addicts, did I say that? The people who are deemed as society to perform worse. You know what I mean? And of course, it's not always true. I was mostly raised by a single mother. Look at me now. Many of my friends were. I considered them to be good citizens in good standings. Most of them with good jobs. So obviously, it's it's the exception, not the rule. But the rule statistically is that murderers, psychopaths, as they say, drug addicts, stuff like this, tend to come from single family households, which are predominantly mothers. Most single parent households are mothers. So Ann Coulter is on this show and she brings up these facts and they can't handle it. And this is what the tweets reminded me of this, because they're unable to just take in this fact, but the reaction to this fact is much more telling, because all these women in the audience that respond to Ann Coulter, all they say is, "How could you? How dare you?" etc., which is exactly what those tweets were. And then they just make it about themselves. So in the tweets, it's "How dare you? Now look at me." In this, it's "How dare you? Now let me talk about how successful I am, or how successful my mother is."
Please welcome controversial columnist and
I'm gonna turn
best-selling
this up.
author Ann Coulter. Her new book is entitled Demonic. Ann said some outrageous comments about single mothers. And Ann, I really want to welcome you, but I don't get this about the single mothers. They should give up their kids for adoption.
Oh, definitely. That's what the statistics are. I mean, not once they're 14, but a woman who gets pregnant out of wedlock, if she wants to do the best thing for the child, it is overwhelming. She should give the child up for adoption, because the statistics, both from the left and the right, are overwhelming on what happens to illegitimate children. About 70% of juvenile delinquents, teenage runaways, pregnancies out of wedlock are committed by the children of single mothers. If you were in the womb right now and you could choose whether to be black, white, rich, poor, the one thing you should hope for as a child in the womb is, my parents are married.
Okay, I understand that.
So obviously these women are ready to lunge at her, and Ann Coulter is not one to dress things up and make things sound better. But you still know what she's saying, right? And if these statistics are true, which we would have to assume, or else why would we bring her on the show without fact checking her on this? Father Albert, not to be confused with Fat Albert. But the reactions from the audience, who are unable to process this fact without bringing their own personality into it, without bringing in their lived experience into it, is very telling. And you'll see why I make this connection.
That gives stability and all kinds of emotional strength to a child. What I don't get, though, is that we're singling out the single mothers, pardon the redundancy, but we're not talking about these absent fathers.
Well,
these absent guys. I mean, these moms are doing a heroic job. I mean, they're out there, they're working sometimes 2 jobs, they're getting their kids through school, they're feeding them, and the dads are nowhere to be found, and nobody's attacking them.
No one's celebrating them either. I am responding to a culture out of Hollywood, the courts, the elite media that is promoting single motherhood. They are not promoting single fatherhood or deadbeat dads.
What do you say to women who say you are demonizing single moms?
All I'm doing is citing statistics. What works is the nuclear family. Now, sometimes that isn't going to happen. I mean, I do make a point of saying,
it's not going to happen. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm hot under the collar.
Well,
there's so many great moms that are trying to be mom and dad to their kids. I know that they cannot be emotionally mom and dad.
So this guy, I mean, this is the only thing I've been exposed to for Father Albert, but he's obviously simping for his audience. As you can see, is a vast array of daytime talk show attendee women. You've got it in every city. You've got the Today Show in New York. You've got The View probably in Los Angeles. I don't know where that's filmed. You've got this show called Marilyn Dennis in Toronto. My mother's been to that show. It's where seniors and people without jobs line up during the day at, a weekday at 10 a.m. and they get in the chair, and man, are they ready to participate. Man, are they ready to hiss and jeer and have their elbow skin flap in the wind as they applaud, and in an enraged fury of free tickets backed by, margaritas and crackers and cheese. That's all it is. And he knows where his bread is buttered. I mean, I'm not even religious, but I'm going to go ahead and say that probably having a talk show based on, everything he's talking about here is probably a little bit against his religion. I guess maybe you're going to get around it by saying you're doing these virtuous things. But my point is he's appealing to this audience no matter what. And maybe in 10 years ago, we would be able to be more sympathetic. But these days, when everything is just pro woman and pro fat and pro everything else, but, the people that work hard, not to say women don't work hard, but you get what I'm saying. It's pro everything but, the people who are paying taxes and doing the hard work. He's sitting there and he's simping for this group of women when he's saying, well, aren't you forgetting the wonderful women? I turn into a person for the 1200s here. Aren't you forgetting the wonderful women who are working hard with 2 jobs and raising Billy and Sally? And it's like, no, we're not actually forgetting them. She's just pointing out, maybe she's doing a little crassly, but she's pointing out the statistics here that it's good to have two parents, particularly a mother and a father. That's good, and that can prevent a lot of bad things from happening in a society. And the point there is that the government should maybe give, you may not agree with it, but the government should give maybe some incentives to stay married, incentives to have children, and maybe the powers that be in the media and the government should encourage people and celebrate people who are in a nuclear family. That's what she's saying. But Father Albert is simping hardcore. Let's watch more.
But they really are going out of their way to provide for their kids.
Look, it's one thing, as I say, a single mother is something different from a divorced mother. Single mother specifically refers to a woman who, A, gets pregnant out of wedlock, and B, decides for narcissistic reasons, I'm going to keep this child for myself, because if she cares what's best for the child, she will give the child up for adoption. And that is a fact.
Don't you think that's very judgmental? I think
it's a fact.
I think you're talking about maybe the Casey Anthonys of the world, where there's all this neglect that we can all see, obviously.
I didn't expect to disagree. I didn't remember the father being having this many interjections, but she says, I don't necessarily agree with it, but if the fact of the matter is that you're going to be a single mother, you should give it up for adoption to have two parents. I don't know if I agree with that, but what I don't agree with is him saying, you must mean this woman who is accused of murdering her child. That's who you must be referring to. You must be referring to the mothers who murder their children and throw them in the garbage. Allegedly Casey Anthony, allegedly Jean-Benet Ramsey. This is who you're referring to. And for him to say that it's judgmental, he's a Catholic priest, bro. Your entire job is judgments and judging judgments from the Bible. I mean, where are you? That's like going to a mosque and being like, what's with all the judgment in here, you guys?
See, the jury did not see it, but there's a lot of controversy with mothers that are that way, that go out and party, that do this, that do that, and are not really responsible for their children. But a lot of single moms are being responsible with.
All right, just for once, stop pretending. You're on the computer anyways. You always got your cell phone in your hand. So just take a quick moment, sign up to the Patreon, patreon.com/uopod. You will not regret it. You're going to see us fly off the handle and say all the things that we can't say on YouTube, lest we be kicked off and shunned from society. So sign up to the Patreon. Appreciate it.
Their children.
And yet,
See?
The statistics still are, if you look at it from the end of the spectrum of who ends up in jail, who ends up a murderer, who ends up a teenage runaway, who ends up getting pregnant out of wedlock herself, who ends up a rapist, about 70%, according to both the Village Voice and all these conservative pro-family groups, are going to be the children of single mothers. I mean, that is simply a fact. Now, imagine in America with 70% fewer teenage runaways, fewer teenage murders, fewer teenage drug addicts, fewer teenage pregnancies. That's what single mothers have created. And like I say, if you want what's best for your child, if you are pregnant out of wedlock, either marry the father, and by the way, shotgun marriages used to work just fine, but we've gotten rid of the stigma of a woman having a child out of wedlock.
But the problem is, it's good to get rid of those stigmas because we would put people always in a box. This is the way you have to be. This is the way it works out.
And
this is not an ideal world, and you're talking about an ideal world. Oh, in an ideal world, by the way, everyone has a mom and dad. We're going back, to the days of happy days. Most of our young people don't know what that is.
When the kids turned out a lot better.
Well,
and they were given every advantage in life. Stigmas are good things. Look, we have a stigma against smokers.
Who are the single mothers of today?
Smoking is bad for you. But smoking is not as bad for you as being raised by a single mother. And yet, we do have stigmas, and they're good things. Stigmas against smoking, and yet smoking is not as bad for you as single motherhood. And there ought to be.
How do you come to that conclusion?
I've just cited the statistics over and over again.
One kills you. We know that smoking kills you.
So I'm just looking up this Father Albert guy here, and let's because it's just odd to me that Father Albert is against promoting, a nuclear family here, and it says Father Albert Coulter, by the way, and I think this is from 2011. He left the Roman Catholic Church in 2009 so he could get married, and is now an Episcopal priest. Episcopal? And it's Episcopalians. He hosts this inspirational talk show. The show will discuss everything from sex to salvation. So he's not a real priest anymore, is what I'm going to go. My words are like, he decided that he didn't want to be as strict of a Catholic, and now he went to this, and he's having a talk show. So I guess I was kind of right in that I didn't understand how this would be, something that he would be quote unquote allowed to do, but he's doing it, and he left being a Catholic, the Catholic faith, so that he could marry a slightly different religious person, I guess. But I think that explains some of the stuff that we're hearing from him. Now I want to get to the audience questions, because as you could see on their faces, they weren't too happy with what Ann Coulter was saying, and all she was doing was stating statistics, and that's why it reminded me of the Pearl Davis thing, because you can make a simple fact that you know that all of us innately known to be true. And if you want to bring it home to as a guy, it's like, I know 10 years ago I was a better athlete. I could recover easier. I could eat what I want more so. And those are traits that I desire to still have. And it's different for a man or a woman. I wish I could, do anything that requires like my manliness easier. And for a woman, a lot of that is focused on, getting a mate and finding a partner and settling down and all that stuff. And what you get from that, these reactions here that we're about to see, is you can just see the insecurity pouring out. That's what I think.
16-year-old son have sex.
You provide condoms at home.
Have these parents gone too far?
These parents have gone too far. Did we just fuck it up? We're going to get... We're stuck on the woman crying here. We'll just refresh it. The streaming program we use over here can be so annoying that... He's hot under the collar, everybody. That as soon as you go to refresh a page, I'm looking over at the imaginary producer, and I'm just like, "What the hell, dude? We gotta figure this out." What's a below meal filler?
Extreme parenting.
I want to prep them.
Giving alcohol to minors.
10 years.
We'll just let this play out. This ad here that we're seeing about facial fillers and whatnot.
His parents gone too far.
Are going to do it.
Why do it at home? Why feed the fire?
This is like, you guys know Steve Wilkos? When he would take people's seats away from them on TV and be like, "You don't deserve to have a seat on my show."
We're back with the always controversial Ann Coulter, and this audience wants to get in on this conversation.
My first question is for you. Do you have any children?
Not relevant to statistics.
Okay, because for me, I've seen, not only my family, I have a ton of friends who are single mothers, and the way they raise their children, they give them the most love than even two parents can give them. I'm raising a family with two parents.
Okay.
And, you don't know what it's like sometimes to have two parents. Sometimes, some people, it's worse to have two parents. I agree. You'd rather have just one.
This woman's ready to cry, and then this is what we're going to get. I'll let it play in more in a second, but this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a bunch of women coming on here and saying, "But my anecdote says this, therefore it must be the existing reality." And it just isn't. It just isn't. My car lasted 600,000 miles. My car, drove through a brick wall and it was fine. Most cars will not go that far. I'm sorry. You may have had the most wonderful car. You may have had the best looking car. Your car might have been in better shape when it was 35 than when it was in 25, but most cars will not be.
Parent who gives you all that love than two parents who are constantly arguing, who they've been together for years and they're miserable, and you can't speak for everybody. You're speaking about statistics.
Right.
You have to live it in order to understand it, not just by statistics.
And sometimes Derek Jeter strikes out. And yet, he's still a great baseball player, because we look at overall how many times at bats, how many times a home run. When you have 70% of the children in juvenile delinquent institutions coming from single-parent homes, yes, I'm sure some single mothers do a terrific job, and I'm sure there are some two parents who do a terrible job. And yet, the statistics are the statistics.
And we have more from the audience.
You keep saying, statistics, but anybody can make up a statistic.
That's why there's so many of them, from both the left and from the right, and for 30 years now.
Where do you think it's okay to say all this?
Okay, you know what? You may as well stand up.
My mother was a single mother, and I'm getting emotional.
That's fine. You're saying what you feel.
I can't talk now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you may as well stand up and say, I'm a smoker and I'm very upset about the smoking statistics, and don't you tell me about lung cancer. The statistics are the
Please be
statistics.
nice. She's talking about something important to her.
So is smoking, and people dying of smoking, and so is people being raised by single mothers.
I don't understand.
Standing up and saying, I'm a single mother and you can't say that is not an argument.
Tell her about your mom.
I didn't say that I was a single mother. I come from a single family.
Okay,
I'm not a
you came from a
rapist. I'm not a
smoker.
murderer.
Don't yell at
So-
me about what the smoking statistics are.
We're not talking about smoking, lady. We're talking about single parents. We're talking about something far more important than smoking, I feel.
Yes, as I said, it's more damaging to a child.
The woman who was obviously from 2006 looks like every girl that went to high school in 2006. Exactly the point. I don't know how much more you want to see. If you guys want to see more cringe, let's get a couple more questions in here, and then we got to move on, because I don't know. There's 5 minutes left.
So for you to even put those two together is ridiculous. I know you're saying this stuff, but do you think about it before you say it?
No, just shoot off at the mouth.
That Blair White.
It's a chapter of my last book. It has the studies there if you're interested. It is study after study. No, I'm just shooting off the top of my head what comes into my mind.
Actually, I'm a minor, and I come from a single family, single mother, okay? And I was raised really well. I'm doing really well. I'm going to school. I'm doing what I need to do to make it in life, and I'm pretty sure I'll probably be making more money than you, only because I'm not just famous for stating a horrible opinion, not a statistic.
Look, the point is not what has happened to children who have been raised by single mothers already. Wish you the best. The point is to influence choices going forward.
But
now,
Anne, are you serious about this? Because everyone here is outraged in this audience. I mean, you are citing statistics. I know that they're credible, but what we're hearing here is...
I know these are credible statistics, but I'm going to have to disagree with you, because my audience is crying right now. And one girl says she's sure she's going to make money when she's 25. So that's a point. And my parents were good to me, so that's another point. You know, it's just an emotional reaction, and we're going to have to get over it at some point.
Turn it up, Jordan.